Hey D&D fam, I'm Quick.
And I'm Lee, and you're listening to
Divas and Ducats. So what is a diva? I think divas get a bad rep. But to me, diva is all about the attitude.
As for ducats, it's your finances, your assets, Skrilla, guap, your coin. We're talking all things with the potential to affect your pockets.
And while we're attorneys by trade, we are divas by choice. Divas and Ducats is for edutainment purposes.
Y'all, we are not Series 511 or 703 professionals. This does not create a financial advisor or attorney-client relationship. The views expressed here are solely our opinions and the opinions of our guests.
It's just our opinion, y'all. Okay, divas, let's talk ducats.
Hey D&D fam, welcome back. We are glad you're here. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and so we wanted to make sure we highlighted this month just different perspectives within that realm. As you're aware of, there can be a stigma about mental health, especially within communities of color, especially Black communities. And so we wanted to speak to that today and get just a tad bit of a different perspective. And so I will turn it over to Quick, who will introduce our guests.
Yeah, so like she said, today we're going to be talking about challenges specifically that face Black men in their mental health, because like she said, there are different challenges that are faced within our community as it relates to mental health. Not saying that other people don't have challenges with mental health. We know that they do, but often within our community, there are very unique challenges that arise. So we wanted to bring on a SME, our subject matter expert, and we are very honored to have Dr. Travis Andrews here today with us. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, thank you first and foremost for allowing me to be on this platform and to discuss mental health. I always think that it's important for our communities. But my name is Dr. Travis Andrews. I'm the co-owner of Andrews Counseling and Consulting. It's a behavioral health agency, and we're located in North Carolina, Lexington, Kentucky, and we're expanding to Atlanta, Georgia. Also, assistant professor, a couple of counselor education programs in the U.S. Also supervise individuals who leaving out of their master's program to enter the counseling field. So educator, counselor, and supervisor.
And recent new title.
Taking on a position as a town mayor in my local town that I was raised in, East Arcadia, North Carolina.
Okay.
I was raised there. The community meant a lot to me, so I just want to do my just and give back to the community. So hopefully taking some of this experience, this education, and implementing it into the community. So
that is huge. Congratulations. You heard it first here on Divas and Ducats.
Dr. Mayor Andrews.
That is awesome. That is awesome, especially for the young boys in the community. They can look up and say, hey, he looks like me, you know. Yeah. Those small towns, that's huge and really important. So let's get into talking about some of these everyday stressors that Black men face. I will say that in my own personal experience within the last 3 days, unfortunately, I had two Black men tell me that they experienced basically a form of racism. In one, it was a guy going to pick up his son at a school, predominantly white school, but he was literally at the school, heading into the school to get ready to pick up his child, and a white lady locked her door at a school. And then the other one, I was at a shopping center getting ready to go in and get me some Chinese food. And there was, a shopping center, of course, there was a store next door, was a nail shop, and there was a Black man standing there. He was just like standing outside. I don't know if he was waiting on a ride, but he was facing the street, and behind him was a nail shop. And you could hear the lady coming, you could hear her lock the door. Like, and he looked at me. No, not at all.
I'm just being clear.
It was like 5:00. And so, he looked at me. He was like, what would I want out of that nail shop? Like, that was so unnecessary, and I apologized. I was like, I am so sorry, Black man, that you had to deal with that, And those are things that, we hear about the clutching of the purses and, people scooting over in the elevator, but we don't really if you don't see it and you don't experience, you kind of think it's like a movie thing. People don't really still do that, you know, but it happens, you know, and that has to weigh on y'all in a way that we don't have to experience, you know. And I know there are so many other forms of discrimination. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's tough. And like you said, these are just everyday things that we see our counterparts do, and it's okay. Yeah. And we do it, the terminology is totally different. For instance, you know, being excited and they say, yay. Oh, yeah. That turns into, are you angry or you loud? Things of that nature. Right. You know, just having to really colonize ourselves in a position in which that we have to ensure that society accepts us and feeling safe and feeling okay, that we do not appear as threats, you know. But how much of our culture is negated in the midst of this? Yeah. That, okay, now we have to colonize and be safe so the greater America could be okay. Right. Again, when we come out of that womb, you know, we already know that our chances of equality is not going to be there. Equity is not going to be there. And these discriminatory practices are going to be higher for us, you know. Yeah. So it's just that upbringing and that and the roots of, okay, how do I need to channel my energy into society? And how often is that really going to be, how often is my voice going to be heard? Right.
And it made me think about when you were saying like him coming out the womb. I was like, we've had a podcast about it. Like even while you were in the womb, doctors could have been discriminating against mom, discriminating against that baby, not thinking that babies is important to bring into the world. You know, so that kind of gave me chills when I thought about it. Like, you know, all my life I had to fight. But and then, you know, talking about like, you know, a lot of this is being geared towards young boys, you know, they have to start at a very young age of dealing with race in a way that other races don't have to deal with, right? There are the talk. Like, there's not a single black person on this earth that doesn't know what the talk means, you know? Yeah. And it's hard to do. I've had to have it. You know, especially with all these media things going around with all the killings, and they are killing young black boys as well. So, like, one, how do you feel about having that conversation with the child at such an early age? Because honestly, it's not only hard to do it, but you literally see the innocence leave their eyes, right? Like, wait a minute, like I'm a threat, you know? Or I'm not the same. I'm not, you know, it's a really hard conversation to have. So how do you feel about protecting them, their innocence, versus having that conversation? And then also talk about, you know, maybe just some of the other things that a little boy may have to endure. You know, I just think about the school. Like, a lot of boys are more targeted as having ADHD. You know, if Billy's hyper, it's, he's just having fun. He plays sports. But, you know,
or he's not challenged.
Right. Or he's not challenged, so he's moved up to a higher grade, or they give him harder work. But, you know, if the little brown boy is hyper, is he ADHD? He's trouble. He needs to go to the office. Right. You know, so.
Yeah, that's critical. I think that it's important for us to inform our kids early. You know, I think that our resilience, our strength, our understanding of who we are comes from home. Okay. I don't think that we're gonna get that in greater society. You know, and not informing our kids on our truth, about our culture, our history, things of that nature. They're not gonna get in the classroom. I didn't receive insight on Black history until I went to college, and that's the great North Carolina A&T State University. Right now, I get pride.
It's HBC.
You know, right? We'll let you live. Right. So, you know, that gave me another insight on, okay, who am I? You know, so imagine that coming at an earlier age. You know, that just fuels you and give you that resilience and that understanding of, okay, how I need to navigate through these situations and these battles.
Yeah. And when you say that you had learned about it into college, it made me think about this video went viral on YouTube for a teacher. It was a little girl. She did I can't think of the black heroine that she wrote an article on, but it wasn't the typical Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, Martin. Right. It was somebody, you know, that the teacher didn't know about, right. And so she told her, this person cannot be a heroine. You cannot write about them. Her mom was an advocate for her and took it to her job, and the girl ended up on the news and everything, being able to give her report about this heroine. But it just made me think about, you know, like they want to pocket how much Black history they can give you, right? I even really recently had a conversation with my son, and I asked him, like, who's the KKK? He was like, they're people who give out loans. Oh, no. Let's start some teaching, right? And so we had a Black History Saturday, you know, and it was just like, if you really think that this being taught in school, it's not, you know, and it's for a reason, you know, it's for a reason. They don't want brown boys to feel like the kings and like your descendants. They're not teaching that.
Nah, they do not.
You know,
and that misdiagnosis is real.
Yeah.
Andrew's Counseling and Consulting. We did a webinar around maybe 2020, 2021. The name of it was Misdiagnosis of the Negro.
Oh, wow.
You know, we did that to bring highlight to how our kids are being misdiagnosed in these education and these counseling settings. For instance, we may look at ADHD and that's saying proper diagnosis, but in reality, the kid may be struggling with some post-traumatic stress disorder.
Right.
You know, they're quick to put labels on our kids with learning disorders, things of that nature. So if I'm constantly being told that I have ADHD, I can't focus, or I have a learning disorder, what's going to happen to my confidence?
Right.
It's steady going down. And now I think I can't compete with my counterparts. You know, so these labels, this education system, all of this is essential to our development and growth.
Yeah.
That's why I go back to home, how important home is, and knowing your roots and knowing who you are as a culture just gives you that ability to say, okay, to be able to dissect.
Right.
Well, I don't know if what they're telling me is accurate, you know, opposed to just challenging that. Right. Right. Because we can look at a professional, you know, back in the day, and we hold their word to bond because we're assuming that their practices are ethical,
right?
You know, their practices are in good intention. But now, okay, we may have to challenge that at this point.
Right. And to that heroine point, to me, if she hadn't heard somebody, I should get extra credit. I educated you,
right? And that's what all the comments were saying. Like, don't be embarrassed that you didn't know. Let this child teach you something. You know, like don't tell her because it's not in this pocket that she can't be. You know, so you know, it's just. I don't know. And what impact do you think that has? Like you were saying, I know that ADHD diagnosis is often a child. If they hear that, they, like you said, they automatically assume, oh, I have this, therefore I can't compete, therefore I can't do this. Oh, my brain is broken, so I don't. Sometimes won't even try hard. It's hard, you know, anymore. So it comes into that self-esteem factor, right? But, you know, as children get older, like you said, a lot of times people are not dealing with all of the other things that child could be dealing with at home, you know, the poverty. They could be dealing with, you know, a missing parent, having, you know, there are a lot of young kids. I know a kid that was like 13 years old had to be a part-time caretaker. You know what I'm saying? So there are a lot of factors that people don't take into consideration of why, you know, little Damon might not have turned in his project, or why he's sleeping class, or, you know, that's aside from them trying to be disrespectful to you, you know? But if they don't have an advocate, like, can you talk a little bit about how that kind of, like some of the mental diagnoses that you see, like when you're talking about the misdiagnosis of the Negro, like how do you, as a parent or even a teacher, how do you advocate for a proper diagnosis?
That's a great question. It's a proper diagnosis comes in the form of triangulation. Okay. So triangulations are 3 forms of data that's being collected. Okay. You have what we call a clinical interview. We have some other form of testing, and we have some observation. Okay. Typically, where the buck stops at is a clinical interview.
Right.
Now, within that clinical interview, do we have an understanding of any cultural considerations that are being in place of this? You know, based on somebody's culture, they may react or do things a certain way. So now if you have somebody, the opposite counterpart, or even somebody who does not have those same lived experiences, they're using their interpretation in the midst of this to create this diagnosis. Tell my students all the time, counseling is a scientific art. The science aspect in this is, okay, the theories, the hypothesis we put on this, and the diagnosis that they have. The art aspect of this is, how can I be creative enough to get you to trust me enough to really have a dialogue with me? You know, so if you don't trust me, because this is your first time meeting me, and I'm asking you to give me your life story so I can diagnose you. You know,
Absolutely.
Right. So you may sit there nonchalant and be like, and they may interpret that as defiance. So again, are we using triangulation, 3 forms of data collection and analyzing to really make a proper diagnosis? You know, typically when individuals come into our practice, we don't go for that heavy hitting diagnosis in the beginning because we understand that these other cultural considerations or these nuances and just time need to take place to have an understanding of what's happening. So that picture can be painted or whatnot. I think that's where it stops at. But it comes back down to educating our communities, educating our families, educating our parents on what's the protocol and policy within these educational systems when seeking treatment, and have an understanding that you have the choice for your own therapist. A lot of people stop therapy because their first time with a therapist wasn't what they like. Say, I don't want to do it no more. I don't like that. But you have the choice to choose who you want. But again, it's come down to educating the community on what is counseling. What does it look like? What options do you have? What are some of the do's? What are some of the don'ts? And I think without magnetizing, you know, and educating the community on that, it leaves a lot of unknown.
And so speaking of access, I wanted to read a statistic because I don't want to get it wrong, because I feel like it speaks to access. So we found that according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Black adults living below the poverty line are more than twice as likely to report serious psychological distress as U.S. adults who enjoy greater financial security. And then another example they found was that depressive symptoms among Black people are more disabling, persistent, and treatment resistant than they are among white people. So how can we, like, speaking to access, right? And especially, you know, knowing that we don't see as equity within, you know, financial security. How can we kind of address this? Because obviously, based on the statistic, we're affected more to some extent.
I think it comes with our stakeholders, you know, and I'm saying stakeholders are our health departments, our social services, our educators, our government officials, things of that nature. How can we put mental health and normalize it in everything? You know, I think it's for so long it had its own separate box.
Right, for sure.
You're crazy. That's
for
where you
sure.
go. You know, so now imagine if we implement mental health in all facets of our everyday life: work, school, home, the community, people. And I'll say the community, I mean just having a trauma-informed approach to things, you know, like being very sensitive on how this may affect someone psychologically or stressful or things of that nature. I think that's where it stops, you know, put in a hole. I think secondly, again, it goes back to that education, you know, on what it is, and then breaking that stigma. The stigma dates back to our historical trauma, because if I'm a slave on the plantation, I can't say that I'm stressed out. I can't say that, hey, this is tormenting to me. What's going to happen? I'm liable to get killed. Right. So now I have to continue to suck this up.
And seem strong.
And seem strong. And constantly have to be strong and man up and things of that nature. My only outlet was the church. Right? So now that's where the big in our community was just pray.
Just pray about it.
God has it. You know, so the church has been our form of counseling for generational years, and that collaboration with the church, the community, the education system, and mental health has to merge, because if not, again, it's going to be this taboo.
That should make a mental health thing in church. Now, wouldn't that be something?
Right.
I mean, if the pastor says it's okay, then mother might go.
Right. But they treat the pastor like he's a licensed professional counselor.
Right. Absolutely. No. Like he don't have the issue. Right. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about the social injustice, obviously, without the killings, especially during COVID, and just the killings that are always on the news, right? I mean, it's the first thing we see when we hear a crime is going on. Like, were they black? And you would know because they show the face, right? Otherwise, you usually hear them talk about it. I don't know the media is getting any better with that, but that's typically what it is. If there's black, they are running that record, they're running that face. But if it's a media, it's a whole different narrative, right? They play the videos of our killings over and over and over and over, just like it's a TikTok video. Right? Minimizing the life of that person. But it has to have some kind of mental impact on, not only, of course, it has it on a black society as a whole, because that is some mother's child, right? Of course, it has an impact on black women as well. But like, talk about the impact that it has on a man's psyche just to see that, and the devaluing of their life, really.
Yeah, it creates traumatic stress disorder. It continues to ensue fear, anxiety, worry, and stress. When you have to ask yourself, can I even leave tonight and go out? I got to look and see what time it is, because I don't want to get stopped by the cops. I have to make sure everything is perfect, so I don't want to get stopped by the cops. So it's like you're creating this fear and this anxiety and worry on, just to be okay. I remember my last year in undergrad, I was so worried, because I said, hey, I don't want anything to happen. I stayed mostly in my room, did my schooling, came back, because my fear was that I was going to get stopped by a cop and get a record, and that'll be the end of my career before it even started.
Right.
No, I wasn't doing anything illegal, things of that nature, but you are worried about, how does this society may impact me as a black man, or what I'm getting ready to do, So you constantly worrying about, how can I navigate through another day?
Yeah, and that's really crazy, because you said that, and I thought about, so my dad, he in some ways hazes my partner a little bit, but a couple months ago, he actually came in, and he was joking, but seriously, he was like, don't get in that car, because his registration was expired. And he was like, you do not want to get stopped and give a reason to get put. Just the fact that you're, just in the driveway and you notice that, and you have to, it just made me think of that. And it's just like, this crazy. Because to your point, I don't think about necessarily, I mean, we all kind of had that to your point about us and the police, but I don't think necessarily that's quite the same about my registration. I don't have that same level of angst.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so how does you say the post-traumatic stress, how does it manifest? What does that look like in someone, or for them to be able to recognize that this is what's going on? Because I think a lot of people, because anxiety is talked about so much, we kind of know when we feel anxious, right? Our body gives us clues when we feel anxious, but I don't necessarily know that people realize when they're dealing with post-traumatic stress, or even traumas from subconscious traumas from their childhood. I don't think people really know that that this is how it's manifesting.
It's feeling as if you would not normally feel.
Okay.
If I can say that, I'll give an example. Me and my daughter was driving on the highway one day, and the cops turned on their lights. Both of us immediately looking in the mirror, looking at side view to see if it's going to happen, checking to see if our seatbelts. Now, he passed beside us. But her and I started processing that. I said, did you see how our bodies change?
Right.
How our reactions change? Because we've seen the flashing of the lights. Just immediately, you know? So it's like, okay, we're wanting our norm.
Yeah.
Right.
It's being on alert all the time.
Yeah.
You know, it's being very anxious when things happen. It may be fearful of to go into certain social settings.
Yeah.
Certain places at a certain time of night or something, you may not even go. Because your fear is not even that something's going to happen to me. It's that, will I get in trouble with the law?
Right.
Would I have to really fight my way out of something that I didn't even do? Because that fight itself, what is that going to do? It's going to impede your ability to continue to keep it moving. You know, and like you ask yourself, do I even want to go through that? You know, so it's just, again, knowing that you're not in your happy space. What is taking you away from being who you normally are? And so we can start identifying where these things are coming from. Because we navigating through the world and we don't even know why. Like, why are we feeling like this? You know, and then we look at the local news, local media, and that tears it up even more.
Yeah.
Because you look at the local news, they have you fearful to go on the other side of town.
Yeah.
You know, they have you fearful to go on the other side of town. So now, who's listening to these images? Our counterparts.
Right.
So of course, when they see us, they 10 times as shook, because the local media then told them, hey, be on the lookout for these guys. This is what they did last night. They did it at 5 different places, and they on the lookout.
Yeah.
And I think it's so evident, like what you're saying, when you have a Ring camera and you're in a Ring community in a gentrified area. And you, man, they be like, gunshot. I'm like, that was a firework. Call the police, like they just, and I'm just like, it makes me sick to read it. I'm like, y'all ready to call the police on them all the time, huh? It's so much.
That's what I'm saying. Right.
Girl, it's just so
put us to a
evident.
place
Right.
where it was supposed to be the slums in the beginning. Now you say, oh man, that place is a great accessibility to stuff.
Right. It's close to something.
Right. Let's move them out and let's get back into the space. It's just that power, and my thing is the lack of respect or empathy for someone else's life. You know, as if that
Like it doesn't matter.
like it's pointless. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So what are some other, we've kind of talked to, of course, social injustice and some of the media portrayals, but what are some of the other problematic maybe expectations or thoughts about Black men that can be detrimental?
Yeah, I think it go to employment and being able to provide, and being able to and parenthood and the essence of those tools, and how they was raised and how we navigate through life. I think that's very distorted.
Okay.
There's been so many types. We're looking at and saying, okay, can he economically provide? Now this individual may have been through so many different struggles where he can't. He may have had to leave school because he had to take care of his family, or the person may have to got a charge and can't get another job. So these are all things that continue to impede on their ability to provide. But that gets interpreted for lazy. Using substance uses as coping mechanisms. Are we looking at the generational trauma in the midst of that? This person could have seen his mom, pops, or whoever utilize the same substance, as coping mechanism.
Right.
So we're expecting an individual to develop healthy patterns and a healthy lifestyle when the person was never exposed to it. We're looking at this person supposed to be a deadbeat father, but we're not even knowing the narrative and the story on that. I just think of just that if we really care, how much effort are we putting in to really research the problem and provide effective interventions? We can just go back to this crack epidemic opposed to this opioid crisis.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, this crack epidemic, lock them up.
Throw away the key.
Is rehabilitation. So, we have to look at these practices and these measures to have an understanding of what's the true story here?
Yeah. And I do think it's I mean, being on social media, I see how hard Black men are working to remove the stigma that men are not fathers. But the stigma is still out there, and like you said, I mean, and having talked to a lot of, and not just guys, women are obviously being raised in these homes too, where they say that they didn't have the model to follow, right? They have never experienced in their family seeing a healthy marriage. But like you said, then you expect them to come out and have a healthy marriage.
Right.
Just come out and be a great father when they didn't have the tools to do it.
Right.
They didn't have therapy, Right. You give them no tools whatsoever and you expect them to come out like the Cosbys.
Right.
That wasn't their lifestyle, So like you said, where's the empathy? Where's the tools? Where's the teaching for all that? Because that is childhood trauma, and they have to work through that to be able to be this exemplar citizen that you want them to be, but you're not giving them the tools to do so.
That's it.
For sure.
And so speaking to provision, like you're talking about, like employment, there may be various things that kind of impact where a person is financially. What are some of the unique challenges for men in terms of employment or career satisfaction or just obstacles? Because I know as women, we speak about like the glass ceiling and feeling like we can only get so far. And there's this like, I guess, limit there. But talk to maybe, the experience. I don't know if it's parallel, it's the same, but for Black men.
Yeah, I think it is the same, because we're looking into these spaces that we're going, and we're still minorities. If it put us in places where we majorities are equal, it's some low paying jobs or occupations.
Right.
We're not managing the construction projects. We're day laborers. So it's just that, again, that equalness of it, to really provide for your family, and you don't even have a paying job that's going to support them. You're working 70 to 80 hours.
Right.
So you're working yourself to death. And then we have to look at that you're working yourself to death on laboring jobs. So by the time this individual is 45, 50 years old, bones are broken. Now this person ends up getting disability or something.
Right.
So are we really looking at what does employment look like for that individual? Now, so they said this person go get educated, go do all these great things. Now, isolation comes. Because again, he's that minority person in this space trying to draw this corporate ladder. Put all this time and energy into this profession, and they let you go at a quick of a dime. Prime example with Don Lemon. He's been with CNN 17 years. He advocated for the Black voice, and they said, forget your 17 years. You can go.
Turn, because for a while we were like, Don ain't really we were like, I don't know.
Right. So it's just a matter of how much of the system was probably fueling that, and it just had enough. So again, it's really looking at, okay, it's a gap right here with employment. What does that really look like? Now, are we really just these laborers and these service individuals they putting us on, or were we forced to be in that space? Because if you look at your grandfather or his grandfather, those are the type of occupation and jobs that they were doing.
Right.
So at some point, this is all a person knows.
Right.
So now this person is in this education system. If you don't have any advocates, things of that nature, they'll put the person. I've seen it with Black males on a vocational track in high school opposed to a college preparation track.
Yeah.
Mom may not know. Dad may not know. So if you're not advocating, no one would know. They encourage my child to apply, my daughter to apply to community colleges. She came back and gave me that report. I said, that's insane. You're not doing that. I had to personally email the school to let her know, hey, we advocates over here. I don't know the things that you're talking about, but this is she's going to a 4-year university. This is the track that she's pursuing. And I didn't get a whole different response. I shouldn't have to do that. I should see, as a school counselor, you should see the best out of a person and identify their strengths and their weaknesses, advocate for them, and educate the parent on what best options you may see fit. That is not occurring. They're putting us in the box. So now when this young man turns 18, he hasn't even touched these experiences to even think they can do something outside of this. So now this man is 25, 35 years old, no skills, no experience, nothing very that's strong that's going to help you keep a longevity in your career.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think to your point about the vocational, because we've talked about this before, like you can make a lot of money off of vocations, right? But it talks about to your experience of entrepreneurship. Even in doing that, if you know a vocation and you have a skill set, if you still don't have the business mind,
That's it.
so you still need the mentorship. You still need the access to men who know how to, do whatever your mentor looks like. It could be a black female or a black male. That knows how to teach you how to run the business, teach you how to network, because you're going to eventually need employees, like you said, unless you're trying to run yourself to the bones. By 55, 50 years old, you're going to need employees. You're going to need to know how to get grants and loans for these tools, right? Yeah. And I don't necessarily know vocation teaches you the skill, but it doesn't teach you the business. So you're still going to need, those skill sets. And I think, it can be stressful, even going through university, going through law school, you have your own stress. Law is one of the highest suicidal rates that there are in a profession. You know what I'm saying? And these people have obviously JDs, they have degrees, but it's still a stress that comes with it, right? Yeah. But again, because law is majority white, they have a PALS program. Inside of that program, they have their own therapeutic program that you could come and talk to. That's not necessarily the case. I don't know construction workers have that. Right.
Yeah.
So, like you said, I mean, you have to make sure that those systems are put in place across the board for everyone to be able to access. But let's talk about people, if the systems are put in place, and we talked about it a little bit with, church usually being the go-to, but even when systems are put in place, and let's say a person does have access, how often do you see that men voluntarily choose to come to therapy, or do they this program made me come, she made me come? Like how much do they voluntarily come?
Yeah, that's mine that I have seen voluntary come is because of that's social environment, positive social environmental influences. Whether their peer group utilizes therapy, right, their family utilizes therapy, things of that nature.
Yes.
My first question I want us to all just process on.
Yeah.
How much of an impact does our social and environmental factors play on our mental health? Now, imagine if this individual has some better social and environmental factors. Would this mental health crisis be just the way it is?
Right.
We have to ask ourselves. So now this is really coming back down to things that we discussed. Right. Economics, jobs, security. If that was in place, would that trauma and all these other things really be at the height that they're really at? I think, again, it goes down to kind of separating the household, because that woman really probably will be that advocate to help get their partner, their son or whatnot, to counseling. So now if you're trying to break that family unit up, now this is black man that's there by himself.
Yep.
A man cannot survive in the world without no woman. So it's just the reality of it. People you need your mother, you need your father.
It's the way it was designed.
Right, that's the way it was designed. You need that opposite partner to give that encouragement. You cannot expect an individual to make so many sound health and wellness related decisions without the impact and the influence of their spouse. That's just the way it was designed.
That's the way it was designed.
And so that woman is the one pulling that person to church, pulling him to counseling, pulling him to his health appointments, things of that nature. And it's okay. It's okay. So if we're recognizing this gap and this issue, again, we need to open that door more. We need to have more conversation in these spaces that men have these conversations in, whether it's in the sports bars, whether it's in the barbershops, whether it's in any of these places, because we know we have to kind of turn this narrative around and start normalizing mental health. Because if that same brother broke his arm, he's going to run down to urgent care without a doubt. Quick. Say, hey, this is the pain I'm feeling. But are we doing the same thing for our psyche?
Yeah. Yeah. And I get that. And I think when I hear you say, you know, a lot of times it is like maybe a female partner kind of bringing them into the fold. I think one of the things that there has been, I can see just even on social media, there has been some like really campaigning into like Black men being more comfortable with therapy and talking about it. And it's a lot more than maybe 5 years ago, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But I feel like, or what I've seen, I feel like Black men still get a lot of flack about being vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess my question is, a couple things. One, from the partner perspective, because usually the partner is like, oh, he's not being vulnerable, whatever. So what can a partner do, whether they, you know, however the man identifies, gay, straight, whatever, that partner that wants more vulnerability, what do they need to know to like foster that environment? But then also speak to the difference between, I guess from a heterosexual standpoint, the difference between being vulnerable and speaking to you like one of your girlfriends.
Right. Right. That's a great question. Let's use the advocacy in an everyday pattern. When I say that, I don't mean when you're upset at me, don't say you need to go to counseling.
Right.
You know, right now I need to go to counseling. Right. You didn't talk about counseling. That it is.
I'm about to call the therapist.
Right. Right. But as soon as you're upset or we having a disagreement or my tone changes, right now I have a problem. So now I'm going to look at that and say, hey, I'm not going there because now you're utilizing this because you're upset at me. Opposed to saying, okay, let's make this a part of our normal being. You know, the same way before you get married, you're supposed to go to marriage counseling or things of that nature. How can you make this a part of your normal everyday being? So now, when that argument ensues or things of that nature, or you're trying to be vulnerable, maybe that's something we need to talk about when we go back to counseling. You know, because things of that nature. So you put us in your daily routine or whatever. Creating a safe space, and I say safe space to know that I'm not going to bring this shit back into your face or things of that nature. That's for both parties.
Yeah.
You know, and asking a person, what do you need in order to feel safe? You know, and if you don't feel safe with me, what can I do to help you feel safe? I think assessing a person's needs and be able to respond to that person on an emotional level to give them to create that vulnerability circuit. The same way as I would do with a client, I can't expect for you to come to me your first time and you just telling me your life story. I need to create a safe space and let you see that you can trust me, and I'm not going to judge you from unconditional positive regard. I'm going to be empathize and I'm going to hear you. You know, and I'm understanding what you're saying. Like I'm reading, you don't have to just verbalize what you're saying to me. I should be able to, if I'm your partner, I should be able to get some of your body cues and have an understanding that, okay, something is off, you know, and be able to identify that. And hey, I see that you're not the same today. What can I do to help you feel better? It's something to that nature. So you know, so you have an understanding that, okay, all right, something is off, something is challenging. Let me help encourage my partner to go into the space.
Yeah.
And so to her second point, because my boyfriend actually said, he was like, y'all want men to be women. Like, how do you get around men feeling like you want me to be vulnerable and talk all the time? That's just not the way I'm wired. Like, how do you get around that? Or is it anything to get around? Is that something a woman needs to adjust to? That you're right, maybe you don't need to spew or emote all the time, because that's what women are supposed to be, the ones that do that. How do you get around that, like that whole thought process?
I think again, just identifying what an individual needs for mental wellness and mental healthiness. It may not be sitting on a couch and talking all day, but what other pleasurable activities that this person is doing to give them a mental break. It could be going hiking. You know, I could be going hiking with my partner and we getting some of this stress out that we didn't have for this time. It could be traveling. It could be something that I want to know, something that you're doing that's giving you mental well-being and identifying on that end. When we look at to see, okay, does a person may need to talk to someone, we have to look and assess, is what this person going through, is it affecting their major domains of life? The major domains of life are considered home, community, social, recreational. So is the person still active in the home, active in the community, active at work, things of that nature. If not, that means, okay, something is bothering that person that's impacting their measured domains of life. That's when we can really assess, okay, maybe we need to see someone and things of that nature. But it starts with creating wellness, creating something comfortable, getting back into hobbies. Because if all I work is 40, 50, 60 hours and not doing anything else, naturally that stress is going to build up.
Right.
So what I'm doing intentionally to incorporate some type of self-care in the midst of this so I can ensure that mentally, I'm okay somewhere.
That's good. I receive it. So, Leandra, did you have any other questions before we...
No, the only other thing I thought about was that there's not a lot of you, just like there's not a lot of black lawyers, especially black male lawyers. There's not a lot of black male therapists.
What percentage are y'all?
Yeah.
Like 5?
Yeah, less than 5. Yeah, like 5.
So my question, that's what led to it, is just like, can you speak to maybe some resources that black men could use if they want to kind of find someone who looks more like them? I don't know, like cost wise, are there some maybe more affordable costs? Because we talked about the economics of things. So I just, before you got out of here, wanted to make sure you spoke to that.
Yeah, that's going to be 80% of counselors are white women. 80%. So to decrease that gap overnight,
it ain't happening.
It's not going to happen.
Exactly.
Right. So, but now with technology, this helps.
Yeah.
Because now that, okay, we can search for counselors and therapists that's not even in our same range. They could be in the other side of the world, things of that nature, utilizing that.
Yeah.
So I will utilize other virtual platforms that will allow that.
Yeah.
I know at the agency, Andrews Counseling and Consulting, we have over 10 to 12 counselors of color.
Okay.
Now we break it down to males, only 4.
Right.
However, it's still a ways, like I said, through just other virtual sessions and platforms and things of that nature, so you can open your options up even more.
Yeah.
I think being intentional with creating support groups, because sometimes we may not get that licensed professional counselor, but we may get that bonding within a group of men that may not be counselors.
Licensed, yeah.
Right, that just create something in this space that we can still be able to have something that those look like each other. They can create some type of bonds and communication and things of that nature. Because really it comes to a point of just really letting it off your chest and be able to have others who be able to identify as you identify.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am curious, because I know, men obviously can get together and talk about, women get together, they usually talking about men, or they talking about their jobs or their kids, there's certain core topics. So men obviously get together, they talk about women and things. But I do know that I have a select few friends that will call me if they're going through episodes, right? They will let me know if they're depressed. They will let me know if they're feeling anxious. They will let me know, they couldn't get to their meds and right now they're just having a hard time. I also know that there are friends that won't, So in men's circles, how often is that talked about? Like, can you go to your boy and be like, man, I'm really struggling with some depression, or I'm really not feeling myself, I'm really thinking about, hurting myself? Like, is that something men talk about?
In my peer group, we have, and it's because I'm a counselor,
right?
So I'm being intentional with that. With the hey, I love you. With the say, hey, you can get off your chest. I'm here for you. Things of that nature. But I may talk with my cousin. He's an engineer, and he's straight. He's a game face. He's holding his emotions on another way. He's not verbalizing that.
Right.
But me viewing his body cues, I can see when something is off. So hey, I may say, hey, you wanna go fishing? You wanna go play some golf? You wanna do something? I'm just here for you. And again, I think when you be building that rapport and you are initiating that safe space, I think that's going to allow the vulnerability to open up or whatnot. I think once men have an understanding that this space is safe, or hey, I trust this individual with my feelings or how I feel or things of that nature, now we could get through more doors, opposed to this is the solution, this is what I see, and this is the only thing that could work. I just think it continues to take time because we have to look at our dynamics may be different. You may have someone who's grown up to see feelings. You may have some individuals who never seen their father cry.
Or hug them. Or say I love you.
That's
it's real. It's real.
That's real. So we have to put all of those factors into our understanding. To say, okay, is this person being just defiant, or is this person just really struggling with knowing that it's okay for them to be vulnerable?
Yeah. It made me think of when you said about the fathers, like where I was at my son's baseball game the other day. And the coach had, he was coaching. He was being a coach, but he had to coach his son. And in that moment, he was like, dang, I wasn't too hard on him. And then within minutes, when his son came off, he was like, I'm sorry, you were right. He was like, because what his son did was he caught the ball, went to first base, and he threw to third base. Normally, that would have been fine if it was an amazing catcher on third base, right? It wasn't. So he was like, no, you never do that, da-da-da-da. Kid came off and he kissed him and I have an affectionate father, but even to me, I was like, wow, I cannot say in any of my days, even with my affectionate father, that I have ever seen my father kiss my brother.
Right.
And it was just like one of those moments. Like, our communities are so different, man. Right. They're just so different. So to all that, you listed all these things that had me exhausted that you do in the beginning. So I'm assuming, are you taking clients? You have your...
we have a team of licensed professional counselors. We currently are accepting clients, Is
that on like a sliding scale for the people who don't have it?
The people who don't have insurance, we do a sliding scale. Okay. Our goal is to assist the community. Yeah. We take insurance, but if you don't have insurance, definitely sliding scale, self-pay. Our goal is to help. Right. We in the past we had a men's group, so we want to get that back popping again.
Yes.
So we're just here. We're here to serve. The whole team is under the supervision of myself, Dr. Travis Andrews, my brother, Dr. Anthony Andrews, and is very intentional with meeting the needs of our community.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
I love that. Website for the people where they can go find you.
www.andrewscounselpllc.com.
And we will definitely have his information in our show notes. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on. I know that you are strong. You and your brother and your cousin are strong advocates in the community. And I just hope y'all continue to shine, man. Y'all are doing the work. You're doing the work, and I just hope, many, many blessings to you. My quick tips would be that, if your children are young, if you have access to mentorship programs, get them in there, because there will be the Travis Andrews and those mentorship programs. There will be a wealth of people that you might not be able to have inside of that home, and a lot of these programs are free. So, if you can get your child, your brown boy, into some of these mentorship programs, absolutely do your best to do so, because you can only do so much. As a parent, you can only do so much, and we all know, any parent knows that your child is only going to talk to you about so much, right? I could tell them something 10 times, and somebody else that is not related to them could tell them, and they'll get it. So, mentorships are very, very, very important, and the younger you can get them in, the better.
All right, y'all. When we do have our Dear Diva segment, you can contact us at divaadvice@gmail.com. That is divaadvice@gmail.com. We hope you all are taking care of yourselves. Check on each other. And until next time, in the meantime, in between time,
have a great attitude. Bye.